All signs point to this as a brand new report has dropped as it pertains to Alex Bregman that changes the landscape of his market when it comes to the Toronto Blue Jays. So we're going to break that down on this episode, as well as discuss multiple new reports surrounding the Jays' interest in the third baseman. So stay tuned for all that in this episode, folks. But before we get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. We're on the road to 16,000 subscribers. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. And the baseball season is almost upon us. We're a couple weeks away from Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s February 18th deadline for him, being extended. Everybody reporting to spring training, all these different things. Baseball activities are starting to ramp up now, and it all is right. But for the Toronto Blue Jays, Alex Bregman's still available, Pete Alonso's still available, and there are still some names left on the free agency market the Jays are actively involved in. And a new report dropped yesterday that has some serious implications surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays. So let's dive right into it here. Now, this dropped late last night from Jeff Passan, and obviously it's been a crazy time for sports with the NBA and all these different things. So it was nice to see a baseball transaction yesterday, aside from, of course, the NBA transactions with Luka and De'Aaron Fox and all these things. But regarding Jeff Passan, right-hander Jack Flaherty and the Detroit Tigers are in agreement on a 2-year, $35 million contract that includes an opt-out after the first season, sources tell ESPN. Now, a few different things to go over with this. For one, the Jays were in on Jack Flaherty. Now, once the Jays signed Max Scherzer, of course, Jack Flaherty went down the chart of actual possible candidates for the Toronto Blue Jays, because at this point, the Jays have their starting rotation set. You have Yariel Rodriguez going to the bullpen. You have all these different things, which we'll discuss later. But regarding Jack Flaherty, for one, great deal for the Tigers. That's a pretty cheap, $17.5 million a year. I think a lot of teams could have benefited from that. For Jack Flaherty, I thought you could get a lot more money. I thought he could get a lot more money. However, notice the team that signed him. It is the Detroit Tigers. Now, the Detroit Tigers were named as the favorites for the longest time, and up until this signing, probably were still the favorites to land Alex Bregman. So now this has a pretty big implications here. You have Ben Turner coming out and saying, are the Tigers out on Bregman now? Because this is from Busser Only, saying the Tigers seem destined to get at least one more veteran for their roster. They've talked to Bregman, who could be a primary choice, and if that doesn't work out, they could turn to Jack Flaherty, a pitcher they value. This was yesterday before the move actually happened. Shout out Busser Only, he's right on it. So it seems like yesterday the Tigers made the conscious decision to be out on Alex Bregman, because that's what they said, and then of course they pivoted to Jack Flaherty. Now, as it pertains to the Blue Jays, whether or not you're an Alex Bregman fan, I'm not a huge fan of the contract. He's a great player, great defender, and like I mentioned, and I have continued to mention in these videos, he would be a great fit for this team for the next couple of seasons until he starts to age. And he's already coming off a bit of a down year last year, still put up a B-WAR, sorry. But the fact that the Tigers are now out on Alex Bregman, the Jays have to be among the favorites, if not the favorites at this point, to sign Bregman. Now, again, they've had, and we'll dive into some reports, like contracts at this point, they have a 6-year offer on the table. It seems like the Bregman situation is very similar to the Pete Alonso situation. And keep in mind, Alex Bregman is also a Scott Boras client, like Pete Alonso is as well. So as you start to look at it now, things are in a very interesting, bit of a stalemate scenario here, because it seems like Alex Bregman wants to return to Houston. It doesn't seem like Houston wants to necessarily bring him back at the number figure he wants. The Jays are the only one with a 6-year offer on the table, according to some of the reports here. And you see this article, Toronto Blue Jays get good news in the pursuit of free agent Alex Bregman. Jack Flaherty going to the Tigers. Does that mean they are out on Bregman? And all signs are pointing to that, especially after this Buster Only tweet and report that dropped there, which again is pretty big if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan. Whether or not you really want Bregman, we'll dive into in a minute here. But the Tigers haven't wanted to spend lavishly this offseason, and they've already signed Alex Cobb, Gleyber Torres, and Flaherty to high-value short-term deals. While they haven't definitively said they're out on Bregman, it seems fair to assume they don't want to give out any more big money deals. The Blue Jays have been connected to Bregman from the start of the offseason, and now they have the cleanest opening for him. Toronto has a clear availability at third base, where the Boston Red Sox will need to play Bregman at second. The incumbent Houston Astros are still in play, but they aren't willing to pay Bregman's asking price either. So, all signs, are pointing to the Blue Jays being favorites for Alex Bregman. Now, a couple of other teams could, of course, come in the woodworks, whether that be, in this case, the Boston Red Sox and the Houston Astros. However, we saw some reports, continue to come out from, a guy like Hector Gomez. Source, the Blue Jays have offers out for Pete Alonso 3 years and Alex Bregman 6 years. The Jays are in play to land either of them. This was a couple of days ago. And there was a while there where the Tigers were, there was some rumors that early in the offseason that the Tigers actually signed Alex Bregman. Those rumors clearly didn't come to fruition. The Jays have a 6-year offer on the table right now worth around $160-ish million, according to Hector Gomez, according to a lot of different reporters. So now as you start to think about what this team can do with Alex Bregman, I mean, he would be a seamless fit. Now, the problem is he's wanting 6 years, $200 million. And I just don't see a world where any team gives him that, let alone the Toronto Blue Jays. But when you're talking about an infield of Bregman, Bichette, Andres Gimenez, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that is one of the best infields in baseball, one of the best defensive infields in baseball, even with Vladdy and Bo's, I mean, Bichette's poor defense and Vladdy's, mediocre defense at first, depending on what, metrics you use. You're seeing some other things here. Take it as you want to, but sources, Bregman's market has begun to heat up. He may end up signed by the end of the week. Cubs, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Tigers are all in here in Cubs and Red Sox. So this guy's saying the Tigers are still in, but the Cubs and the Red Sox are the most aggressive. Cubs are another interesting, name to keep an eye on. Honestly, it would make a ton of sense if the Cubs get him as well, and I can see that certainly happening. But at the end of the day, one more team is gone, and all signs point to him not necessarily being a Toronto Blue Jay, even though I do think Blue Jays are a very high, a high likelihood of signing there, but just that him being signed over the next little bit of time. And a couple things I want to go over here. So I want to look at the Blue Jays Zips projections now, and you look at some of the guys that they have. I mean, the Zips has Andres Gimenez as their most valuable player, and a lot of people were upset with the trade. They give up Spencer Horwitz. Their highest projected WAR player is Andres Gimenez, which is very interesting, followed by Vladdy, Kirk, Santander, Bichette. I mean, their team is actually looking very solid. They're pretty high on Davis Schneider and Will Wagner. Seeing where Will Wagner will end up this year, whether it be in a starting role, most likely, a platoon guy who plays, sometimes, doesn't play all the time. He's super utility man. Clement's not there as well. But as you look at the Picada standings here, and I know it's a little bit small, but if you zoom in, you can kind of see, if you look closely, you can see that the Blue Jays are projected to be around 84.5 wins. And I brought this up for, almost all projections right now have them between 84 and 86 wins. And the reason that's so important, let's say you go 84 wins. The next little bit of wins you can add to this team, and I've been speaking about this for a while, the next, three, if you can add one more player that is between a 3 to 4 WAR, or let's say, a player like Alex Bregman, who should give you 4 WAR, and then maybe a lefty bullpen guy, that's what's going to propel you from the third place in the AL East to potentially winning the AL East. So when you're looking at how the Blue Jays could fit into the Alex Bregman sweepstakes, it's very easy to convince ownership and convince themselves that, yes, this contract may age poorly from years 3 to 6, but for the next 3 years, if you can add another 4 to 5 WAR player, then that would propel you from outside looking into the wild card spot directly into a wild card spot. And that's the biggest thing with this team right now, is they need those extra wins. And that's why I think that there's a very good chance and very high likelihood that the Jays end up pursuing a guy like Alex Bregman or Pete Alonso, and that they end up getting one of the two. They have offers in on both. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens as the reports continue to come out and as things come out going forward. And Jeff Passan also came out recently and said regarding the Bregman market, there's offers on the table for 6 years, 156, and that the Red Sox are seemingly out on Bregman as well. So if the Jays want to value those last few wins, which they definitely should, considering it's the difference, according to a lot of these projections, between being 3rd to 4th in the AL East, maybe even 5th, compared to being 1st and competing for a pennant race with the Yankees and the Orioles. But that'll wrap it up. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. A ton of news is coming out. We're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching. Cheers.